if you're the Eagles, do you take a quarterback in the top 60 picks for the second time, in 2 years after the Jalen Hurts pick last year?
I don't see how you can. I think you're just going to end up in the exact same situation you ended up in this year. I see that they
picking
have to.
One at 6 is very different, though. Very different to picking one at 54 or whatever it was last year.
But I think you then still have that QB controversy, where it's a case of, is this guy the man? We've got a number 6 pick sat on the bench. Pick some talent at 6 that isn't a QB and say, look, if we get it wrong and our QB stinks again, we'll probably have the 6th pick again next year. I don't understand the logic for, after the issues they've had this year, to go and pick a QB at 6.
Talking of the quarterbacks in this class, I think it's wearing my Jacksonville Jaguars hat. We are on the clock. Connor, are you going to find someone from the University of Florida to pick this time, or?
You know what? I'm going to give it a miss this year. Maybe in a second.
Fair enough. All right.
But I'm growing my hair ever so, trying to get those Trevor Lawrence locks. Yeah, I'm sold on Trevor Lawrence to Jacksonville. I mean, so is the whole world pretty much. I think every insider expects it to happen. He's been I actually watched him for the first time on a series called Elite 11 on YouTube. You can go back and watch it. Him and Justin Fields are in it. And this guy was known to be the best quarterback prospect since Andrew Luck, 3 years ago, when he was like a senior in high school. So I'm completely sold. I watched his workout the other day, and that sold me even more. He's got a good arm. He reads the game well. He's got that mobility, which I think is key now. Like, you're not going to see players who are pocket passers, I don't think, getting drafted that high anymore, because the game's evolved. You don't have to be exactly like a Lamar Jackson run first quarterback, but someone like Justin Herbert who can move around, can make plays off schedule, I think is key, because we've seen the players that have busted like the last few years. We had Josh Rosen for the Cardinals, Dwayne Haskins. These guys are not mobile, and I think players don't get enough time now to develop the mental part of the game, which someone like Tom Brady has, which allows him to be a pocket passer. So yeah, Trevor Lawrence is my guy. I'm ready to get a jersey. I'm gonna have posters on the wall. I'm ready to rumble.
You're a fanboy already.
100%.
He's not even drafted yet, mate. We might take Fields or someone instead.
I mean, just shoot me now. Shoot me now if that happens.
I mean, surely even the Jags can't get this wrong.
No, I think
surely
it
not.
says it all that Urban Meyer suggested to Trevor that he do his pro day early and do it when he did. And
I mean, did you see Urban just standing in the middle of the field as well? Like fucking big dick Urban just standing there, just like, this is like claiming
this is my boy,
basically.
back off.
Yeah, this is my boy. Back the fuck up.
He was basically doing dropbacks with him. He was that close.
Yeah.
He was a great college quarterback prospect, being compared, being, said to be the best quarterback prospect since Andrew Luck 10 years ago, I think it was. Won the national championship at Clemson as a freshman with one of the best quarterback performances you'll see. He was incredible in that game. His sophomore year tailed off slightly. It kind of looked like it was no longer a challenge for him anymore, really. Like, to me, it just looked like, I'm just going to stare down my first read and eventually they'll get open, and I know I've got the arm talent to get it there. And that's basically what he did. Kind of similar to Josh Allen coming out, I think, but with much, much more advanced sort of mental processing in his game.
I don't think his arm is quite, from watching a bit of tape, I don't think his arm is quite Mahomes Allen-esque. Like, I think it's, it's a decent arm, but it's not a huge cannon. But as long as the ball gets there, then
I mean, he had he ran the scramble drill as his final thing at Pro Day and just casually flicked it 70 yards. So I mean, he's definitely got a cannon. He's not a Justin Fields who has to wind up for 52 yards. But it's I don't think you're right. He hasn't quite got that arm strength, but he'll be fine.
No,
it's enough.
Agreed. He can get it there. It's just not on a line as much as it is with Mahomes and Josh Allen. Anyway, Justin Fields, quarterback from Ohio State, who actually tore Clemson apart. Clemson, led by Trevor Lawrence in the playoffs there. Justin Fields threw for, what was it, 6 touchdowns, 7 touchdowns in the
6,
end?
I think, yeah.
Yeah, something ridiculous.
I mean, his arm in that game, like I'd never seen him throw deep to that level before. Like he really impressed me with with his ability to push the ball down the field that day. I know he's got a bit of a wind up, but yeah, that did impress me.
That Clemson game is the best tape I've watched of him. He's
Yeah.
You know, when you look back at other bits and pieces, he's good. Don't get me wrong, and you know he'll definitely be he'll definitely be a top 10 pick. But was he blowing me away? Probably not. But actually, that game against Clemson, he did. And I wonder if it is some mental thing that he had that bit between his teeth to go back, get the revenge against Clemson after that game the year before where he went 2 picks and only the 1 touchdown. And I think whether that extra bit spurred him on, I don't know, which worries me slightly if he needs that to have that ability. Maybe he does, maybe he's a bit like you were saying, Lawrence was this year. Maybe he just needs that extra challenge to say, okay, I'll go and do that. I mean, you and I spoke about this, Craig. When you watch Justin Fields' tape, it's very hard to evaluate how good he is throwing into tight windows because he never has a tight window.
No. My favorite game watching Justin Fields' tape is as he's releasing the ball, pause the video and just see how much space the receiver has. Generally, there's no one within 5 yards. It's crazy. Like you guys have said, that Clemson game is the first time I've really seen him be or have to be on point with his accuracy for a whole game. And he could do it. But like, it's a big gamble taking someone potentially with the number 2 overall pick when you've only seen that in 1 game. I guess this is a good segue into talking about where you guys think he'd fit in. Personally, I think the 49ers, again, make a lot of sense. Kyle Shanahan's offense is good for creating a lot of easy throws into bigger windows, and he can kind of evolve in that. Yeah, that's my fit for him. But what did you guys think?
I kind of like Zach Wilson to the Niners. That's like what I'm hoping happens. But I think for Justin Fields, I think Atlanta maybe would be a good spot, and then maybe Carolina as well. If Carolina don't manage to pull off a trade, I could see Justin Fields working in Carolina.
Yeah, I think it's somewhere where he can go and, but he's clearly athletic. He's clearly got the ability with his legs. I think to me he doesn't fit at the Jets. I think it's going to be with the talent that the Jets have got, they're going to run a shell of that 49ers offense. I don't think that I just don't see him at the Jets. I also think picking him at 2 is too early. But I think you're right. I think the Falcons at 4 is a good shout. He's a lot more athletic, but he is Matt Ryan-esque in a way. So Falcons I can see, and it gives him a year. It gives him a year to sit behind Matt Ryan. I don't think the Falcons lose Matt Ryan this year.
No, that's part of the reason I said Falcons and Panthers as well, because they've got Teddy Bridgewater in Carolina and they've got Matt Ryan, like you say, in Atlanta to give him a bit of time.
Yep. Okay, so in the top 10, we have the Jags taking Trevor Lawrence. We have the Jets at number 2. So who do you guys think is going to end up going there?
I think Wilson's your number 2 QB.
Yeah, I guess the real question to go with this as well is what kind of player fits into the Jets system or the level of talent that is around on the Jets at the moment. Because I think that's the harder question to answer at the moment. I
mean, I think the interesting thing that the new coach Salah said when he went in was Darnold will immediately be the most athletic QB in that system. That
he's going to have to be behind that offensive line.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously that's a big thing. But so if they want to implement that system, if they want to implement that system, they don't actually need the legs of someone who is that athletic. They don't need a Lamar Jackson type behind there. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. I mean, I have a sneaky feeling the Jets do stick with Darnold next year and build elsewhere. For that reason, you said that they have so many holes, so many holes and so many needs that they may just say, let's fill some of those holes, give Darnold a chance to play without Adam Gase and see what he can do.
I mean, I'm still Sam Darnold's number one fan. I still think he can be a good QB. I think you put, me and Craig have had this conversation before about if you put Sam Darnold on the Kansas City Chiefs when Mahomes started there and put Mahomes on the Jets, I think they'd be a lot closer. I think the coaching in New York has been terrible for I don't even know how many years. So I think they could possibly go with Sam Darnold, but if I'm at number two, I'm not picking another player apart from a QB, or I'm moving down. And are you going to? With so many quarterbacks, I'm not sure they're going to get the trade package they want. So the reason I said Zach Wilson to the 49ers earlier is, like Mark actually said there, you don't necessarily need to be particularly athletic to play in that system. The running game is the main focus, as the inside zone, outside zone runs. And then you can have someone who can, in that West Coast kind of style, just pop the ball to all the playmakers. That's why they have so many in San Francisco, have those sort of yards after the catch playmakers like Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel and George Kittle for that fact. So if the 49ers system is going to go to the Jets and they're going to try to aim to rebuild that, Zach Wilson could also then work on the Jets in my eyes. If there's going to be a similar system. So I think Zach Wilson to the Jets is probably the pick, although I haven't watched enough tape on all of these yet to really have a final decision. And I think with Trey Lance, who we're probably going to talk about in a little bit, I'm not sure what he does bad. Like from what I've seen, he seems to do everything well, and he's bigger, stronger arm, more athletic. So I'm not ready to give up on the Trey Lance at number two talk yet, but who knows? I'll have to watch some more tape, I guess.
I'll happily tell you that I absolutely love Trey Lance out of North Dakota State, but I can't see him going ahead of Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson's played at a higher but not great level of competition at BYU. But with that, he's had receivers who also aren't, wide open in the same way that Justin Fields' guys constantly are. He's had to make tight window throws. He's had to improvise because his offensive line have let free rushes come at him. So he's got lots of things that a modern quarterback should have. Things like being able to throw the ball from different arm angles, being able to evade pressure, extend the play, and still find a guy downfield. So
yeah, I'm just cautious because I've definitely done it in the past, and like last year with Herbert, like I liked Herbert's tape. Like the year before when I thought he was going to come out, I wanted the Jags to get him. I was desperate for the Jags to get him. He went back, and then you listen to all the mock drafts, you listen to Mel Kiper, you listen to Daniel Jeremiah, and before you know it, your rankings are starting to sort of sound a bit like theirs. And a lot of the times that doesn't correlate with what the teams are thinking. You see teams like Seattle, for example, who go and pick players that aren't projected to go until the third round in the first round. So I think the teams, and especially with this year with the coronavirus, the lack of mixing at events, I think teams could be all over the place with these quarterbacks. Like we might think that Zach Wilson's number two, the media might think, but whoever's got that second pick might just fall in love with Trey Lance, and it could be a crazy draft in that sense, I think.
And I think you've got to think about the effect of no combine this year as well. You're not going to see a lot of this top talent next to each other. You're going to have to rank them on different days, doing different things with different receivers, and it's going to be a lot harder to evaluate this year. I think, and I think that's going to have a big effect on it as well. And you can't send, tens of people to the combine to go, look, you can send one person to that pro day. You can send two people to that pro day. So I think that's going to play a lot into it as well. And I think you're right. I think it's going to be a case of there's going to be a lot more weight behind one person in an organization falling in love with a player this year. And I think that could create mayhem.
If you're the Jags, you just organise the pro day yourself. Do it that way instead. There's one more guy whose situation I find pretty intriguing, and I'm very curious to know where you guys think he'll end up, basically, and that is Mac Jones, the quarterback from Alabama, who took over from Tua once he got injured. So he got kind of 8 games last year and then was Alabama's starting quarterback this year as well. Led the nation in, completion percentage and had a whole heap of yards and touchdowns. It was a very successful quarterback. Where do you think he'll end up is my question for you.
I think the New England Patriots is probably the most obvious answer. Like someone who desperately needs a quarterback, but isn't really in a position to get one of the top guys. Yeah, I could see him. I could see him going there. I think he did have a good season, but like we sort of saw with Tua, it's kind of hard to really assess their talent with the amount, the talent of the quarterback with all the talent around them, like 4 first-round wide receivers. Like it's kind of hard. It's kind of hard to assess it, but I think New England's probably the most obvious spot.
I wouldn't be surprised to see him end up somewhere like this, like the Steelers or potentially Washington, maybe the Saints. You know, I quite like the idea of him going to the Saints. You know, I think, you know, I think they'll probably bring back Jameis Winston and they'll probably roll with him. Although Taysom Hill's contract makes that a tricky thing, especially with their cap situation. But
I mean, are they really going to go into the season with Winston, Taysom Hill, and like the quarterback room is just messy at that point if they get Mac Jones?
Yeah, but I think then you essentially just say, look, Jones, your third choice, sit for a year, learn the pro way. You know, I don't think anywhere, potentially Patriots, but I don't see Mac Jones as a starter next year. I think with the amount of free agents there are, I wouldn't start him next year. I would at least have a bridge in place. I think the Saints might make sense because you may not see Winston as your long-term guy, but you say, look, we'll give him a shot. If he's not, we've got Mac Jones here ready to go next year.
Personally, rightly or wrongly, I can't see him getting past 17 and the Washington football team. At 17, they're not in a position to be drafting one of the top 4 quarterbacks in Lawrence, Fields, Wilson, unless they make a big move into the top 10 to get him. So I can kind of see them getting a little bit antsy. They've got that great defensive line and front 7. They have a whole heap more holes on that team, but I honestly just think they get very antsy, very anxious. We need our quarterback now. And the best one available is Mac Jones with his very accurate arm and limited athletic gifts. He's not useless, but he's not, you know, he's nowhere near the caliber of the other 4 guys we talked about. I don't know.
Yeah,
I think it's a very interesting equation though, because it will change a lot of other things about the QB market for the offseason.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, isn't it? It's so hard to know when there's so much up in the air about QBs in the free agency. Like, you know, realistically, half of the league can have new QBs next year.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't be surprised. You know, and then there's other QBs who are coming up to that payday. And, you know, I'm not saying they're going to go and get Mac Jones, but look at the Browns. The Browns have to make a decision on Baker. Now, I'm not saying that Baker's not a good QB. I think he is a good QB at the Browns, but Baker's going to want in excess of 40 mil a year. If you're the Browns, do you want to pay Baker that much of your cap?
Yeah.
So I think that's the other interesting thing to build into this. That A, the cap is so much lower this year, but B, you've got that class who are going to start to say, are we going to pay that person? Are they the person for our franchise going forward? Or do we reinvest in someone, bring them in, sit them behind, see what they're like before we make that decision?
Agreed. It's very interesting. And that's why I saved him to last, because it's going to be an indicator of teams' philosophies towards, you know, shooting for the stars by like trying to trade for Deshaun Watson or kind of settling for one of the less heralded rookie quarterbacks, that kind of thing. So I just can't see Washington going into the season with Alex Smith as their quarterback.
But then with Ron Rivera, is that where Cam Newton ends up? You know, there's so many QBs on the market that it's gonna be so interesting seeing what happens in free agency.
Connor, finish this off. What were you going to say there?
There's going to be a few teams that don't have the draft capital to get one of the big guys, and are going to have to find a QB from somewhere. And I think that we've never had more good QBs in the league than we've had now. Like Dave Damashek always says, it's like QB saturation point has been reached. So I think you're going to see more teams taking first round flyers on people like Matt Jones. And then if it doesn't work out, we'll go again next year, like do the whole Josh Rosen, Kyler Murray thing. There's going to be more good backup QBs around the league. So I think that's where we are currently. And these teams that don't have the draft capital are just going to probably take, late first round flyers on people and hope for the best, hope it works out.
Yep. And we haven't even touched the Dak Prescott situation in Dallas with his starting QB contract that he should have got 3 years ago. But there we go. That's probably something for another episode or a whole episode on its own entirely, I think.